Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kayla and it's time to crack into a good book. So today's video is the second part of my November book haul. So these are all the books that I've bought since, my last book haul into September, early October. So we've got quite a few here and a lot of them I'm really excited about. So before we get started, leave a vampire emoji in the comments to let me know that you're here. And we'll begin with some urban fantasy books. And the first book I'll talk about today is The Lights of Prague by Nicole Jarvis. So this is more of a historical urban fantasy, I think. So obviously it takes place in Prague, but we have vampires, hence the vampire emoji. So in the quiet streets of Prague, all manner of mysterious creatures lurk in the shadows. Unbeknownst to its citizens, their only hope against the tide of predators are the dauntless lamplighters, secret elite monster hunters whose light staves off the darkness each night. Novik Miska leads a life teeming with fraught encounters with the worst kind of evil. Oh boy. Pejovic, maybe? I don't know. Bloodthirsty and soulless vampiric creatures. Despite this, Novik finds solace in his moments spent in the company of his friend, the clever and beautiful Lady Aurora, a widow with secrets of her own. When Novik finds himself stalked by the spirit of the White Lady, a ghost who haunts the Baroque halls of Prague Castle, he stumbles across the sentient essence of a will-o'-the-wisp captured in a mysterious container. Now, as its bearer, Novik wields its power, but the wisp, known for leading travelers to their deaths, will not be so easily controlled. After discovering a conspiracy against these vampire creatures that could see them unleash terror in the daylight world, Novik finds himself in a race against those who aim to twist alchemical science for their own dangerous gain. So I had my eye on this when it came out earlier this year, but didn't really know anything about it, hadn't seen anyone review it. So recently there's been a whole bunch of buy two get one free sales. So that's how I picked this up. But I looked at it again, and it seems like several people that I follow and know have rated it pretty highly. So I was like, okay, yeah, I do think I'm interested in it. I tried to sample on Amazon and was like, this seems really intriguing. So, I'm always up for a good vampire book, and historical urban fantasy seems really cool. So I'm definitely excited for this one. The next urban fantasy paranormal romance book is Wildcard by Rachel Vincent. So this is the third book in this Wildcat spin-off series, and this is a spin-off to her, I think it's just her Shifters series, which is basically we have a bunch of cats. So I've been meaning to pick this up for a while. So we have Casey, who's a man-eater. She's grown up on the fringes of shifter society, hearing the whispers. One desperate act as a starving, terrified child has made her the first happy in history with no romantic prospects. But whatever, 18 is too young to get married anyway. Still, when she stumbles upon an opportunity to get away for a few days, who could blame her for seizing it? Then we have Justice Alexander, who has been confined to the South Central Territory awaiting trial for crimes he committed as a traumatized, newly infected stray. He's discovered that the tribunal already intends to vote for the death penalty. He has no choice but to run. Too young to touch the trust fund that could finance his escape, he's betting on a big win at the poker tables until Casey, his secret crush, catches him sneaking out and demands he take her with him to Las Vegas. After a wild night she can't remember, Casey wakes up with a ring on her finger next to a young millionaire who can't access his fortune until he turns 25 or ties the knot. If she can keep her hands off her hot, charismatic new groom, she can have their unconsummated marriage annulled. But can she really abandon Justice to his death sentence just to undo her own mistake? So I really like Rachel Vincent's writing. It's super easy to read and really engaging. I like this universe. Basically, like I mentioned, we have a bunch of werecats, but female shifters are not as common, so they're highly prized, hence what makes it interesting here with her not having romantic prospects. But yeah, I think she writes interesting relationships, and I'm just excited to finally read this. So then the next two books I have that are urban fantasy, we have A Longer Fall and The Russian Cage. These are books 2 and 3 in this series by Charlaine Harris. I can't remember what the series is called, but this is kind of an alternate history urban fantasy where basically the US, what happened? I think FDR ends up getting assassinated or something like that, and then basically Russia controls most of the West Coast, I think, and then there's, basically the US has just been split up into different territories, I guess, of other countries. But anyway, I've been meaning to continue this series for over a year now, and just haven't for some reason, so I finally picked both of these up. So I'll probably just read the synopsis of the second book so I don't spoil myself for the third book, but this is, the Gunny Rose series, that's what it's called. So we have Lisbeth, who's hired onto a new crew transporting a crate into Dixie, which is the self-exiled southeast territory of the former U.S. What the crate contains is something so powerful that forces from across 3 territories want to possess it. Dixie is just about the last part of the former U.S. Elizabeth wants to visit. Worse, what seems like a straightforward job turns into a massacre as the crate is stolen. She finds a surprising ally, a wizard, who's also after the crate because its contents can make a permanent change in Dixie. But can they track it down before the powers that be in the town of Sally track down Elizabeth and her wizard? So, yeah, basically we have some interesting magic. There's a lot of, like, Russian wizards from what I remember of the first one, but I really like Elizabeth, the main character, so she's a gunny, and essentially what that means is she's, like, a gunslinger for hire, and she was just, like, really badass and super fun. So I thought the first book was really fast-paced and really enjoyable. I think it made it onto my best urban fantasy of either... God, when did I read that? I don't know. It was either 2019 or 2020. And then here it looks like we are going to the Holy Russian Empire, which is San Diego area, I guess. So, yeah, definitely excited for both of these. And then the last of the more urban fantasy books is Hex on the Beach. This is an anthology by Kelley Armstrong, Jeaniene Frost, and Melissa Marr. So I think I talked about this when it came out in July this year. Basically, Kelley Armstrong is an auto-buy author for me. I also really like Jeaniene Frost. I've never read anything by Melissa Marr, but I'm kind of curious to check that out. But so here, this has a story from the Cursed Luck series by Kelley Armstrong, and I enjoyed that series. I think it's kind of like story 1.5 between the first book and then the second book, which comes out in December. So I was like, okay, yeah, I want to read this. But basically, we have our characters from these different universes trying to enjoy their respective getaways, but when immortals, vampires, and witches come out to play, things are bound to go awry. Let the supernatural hijinks begin. So that's basically all it says on the back here. I think the second story by Jeaniene Frost revisits Cat and Bones, and I really like that series. And then I don't have any idea what the Melissa Marr one is, but I'm excited to read that because I've been kind of intrigued by her books before, so, you know, if I like her writing, then maybe I'll check them out. But yeah, I know that's kind of a brief synopsis, but it's an anthology that I'm excited for. So now we get into the fantasy books, and the first one I'll talk about is The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik. So this is the second book in the Charlaine series, which is like dark academia, like a really kind of brutal magic school, which I'm totally here for. The official motto of the Charlaine is "In wisdom, shelter." And so basically it's like, I suppose you could even argue that that's true, only the wisdom is hard to come by, so the shelter is rather scant. Our beloved school does its best to devour its students, but now that I've reached my senior year and have actually won myself a handful of allies, it's suddenly developed a very particular craving for me. And even if I somehow make it through the endless waves of maleficaria that it keeps throwing at me in between grueling homework assignments, I haven't any idea how my allies and I are going to make it through the graduation hall alive. Unless, of course, I finally accept my foretold destiny of dark sorcery and destruction. That would certainly let me sail straight out of here. The course of wisdom, surely. But I'm not giving in. Not to the malice, not to fate, and especially not to the showmance. I'm going to get myself and my friends out of this hideous place for good, even if it's the last thing I do. So I really liked the first book. I think it doesn't work for everybody just because it's kind of like a snarky tone, I guess, with the main character, but I thought it was really great. And yeah, our main character, Galadriel, is essentially like foretold to be a dark sorceress, and she's like been trying to fight that, but everybody thinks that she's just evil. So I don't know, I think it's a really good series. I've been really excited to continue it. I don't know, like I bought this, I pre-ordered it and still haven't read it, and it came out at the end of September, but I don't know. Anyway, I definitely want to get to this before the end of the year, so hopefully that actually does happen. And the other adult fantasy book I have is The Quicksilver Court by Melissa Caruso. This is the second book in the Rooks and Ruin, I think it's a trilogy, and I've really loved Melissa Caruso's writing. I think it's fabulous. She writes just really engaging characters. The plot is really interesting. The magic's interesting. There's some really great slow burn romance, which I'm totally here for. So here we have Roxander, who's the warden of this tower, and things have gone poorly, I think, in the first book. Demons are now walking the world. As tensions grow between nations, all eyes and daggers are set on Morgraine, which has fallen under the Demon of Discord's control. When an artifact with the power to wipe out all life in a domain is stolen, Rix will do whatever it takes to save her home from disaster. But success may demand a larger sacrifice from Rix than she could have imagined. So, oh god, I'm just so excited to finally read this book. And yeah, I mean, even though it's kind of a chunky book, I think her books are just so well-paced, and I just fly through them because I can't stop myself. So this is one that I want to get to really soon. Perhaps by the time I post this, I will have started this and or finished it. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I definitely want to get to this also before the end of the year. So then we have a few YA fantasy books, and the first one we'll talk about is Song of the Dead by Sarah Glenn Marsh. So this is the second book in this Reign of the Fallen duology. I read the first one a couple months ago and enjoyed it. It's like, there's a lot of necromancy. The dead kind of return and rule the kingdom, but not everybody is happy with that, and like basically they have to stay covered. Otherwise, like if someone living sees them unveiled, then the dead kind of turn into like ravenous creatures and want to kill everything. So anyway, basically the kingdom has changed for the first time in nearly 300 years, and raising the dead has been outlawed. Odessa, our main character, is determined to explore the world, hoping to heal a heart broken in more ways than she can count. But with Meredy joining the ocean voyage, vanquishing her sorrow will be a difficult task. Despite the daily reminder of the history they share, they're fascinated when their journey takes them to a land where the dead rule the night and dragons roam the streets. Odessa can't help being mesmerized by the new magic and by the girl at her side. But just as she and Meredy are beginning to explore their new world, a terrifying development in the country summons them home at once. There's some political unrest, so they're thrust back into their lives that they tried to leave behind. Gathering a force big enough to ward off enemies seems impossible until one of the Queen's mages creates a weapon that could make them invincible. As danger mounts inside the palace, Odessa fears that without the dead, even the greatest invention won't be enough to save them. So, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the first one and want to wrap up this duology. I think it's a very easy read. I also like how magic is kind of tied to eye color. I think that's an interesting idea. The next book I have is Fireborne by Rosaria Munda. So this is a YA fantasy with dragons. So Annie and Lee were only children when Revolution changed their world, giving everyone a chance to test into the governing class of dragon riders. Now they're both rising stars in the new regime, even though Annie's lowborn family was executed by dragonfire, while Lee was born to the very aristocrats who used to rule the city. A childhood at the same orphanage forged their friendship, and 7 years of training have made them rivals for the top position in the dragon riding fleet. But everything changes when survivors from the old regime surface, bent on reclaiming their city. With war on the horizon, Lee must choose to kill the only family he has left, or to betray everything he's come to believe in. And Annie must decide whether to protect her dearest friend, or step up to be the champion her city needs. Loyalty and love are tested in this gripping adventure that asks what matters most, the family you were born into or the one you've chosen. So this is one that I've heard so many good things about, and finally I was like, okay, I gotta try it out for myself because I just need to know. But, you know, I think that sounds pretty exciting. I apparently did not remember anything about the synopsis aside from there being dragons. So that sounds much more interesting to me after I'd like literally just read it to you. So I'm very optimistic that I'll enjoy this one. And then the last of the fantasy books is this YA fantasy, Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. So this is a retelling of The Goose Girl, but like kind of dark, I think. So we have Vanya, who knows that no gift is freely given, not even a mother's love, and she's on the hook for one hell of a debt. She's the adopted goddaughter of Death and Fortune and was Princess Giselle's dutiful servant up until a year ago. And that's when her otherworldly mothers demanded a terrible price for their care, and Vanya decided to steal her future back by stealing Giselle's life for herself. The real Giselle is left a penniless nobody, while Vanya uses an enchanted string of pearls to take her place, and now she's leading a lonely but lucrative double life as princess and jewel thief. And then she essentially crosses the wrong god and is cursed to an untimely end, turning into jewels stone by stone for her greed. She has just 2 weeks to figure out how to break her curse and make her getaway. And with a feral guardian half-god, Giselle's sinister fiancé, and an overeager junior detective on her tail, she'll have to pull the biggest grift yet to save her own life. So I am very excited about this. I love a good retelling. The Goose Girl is a very interesting story, and I just like all the different elements that we have here, like the fact that we have Death and Fortune and all sorts of other gods turning into stones is an interesting curse. So I'm really excited to try this one out. So then I have a couple of sci-fi books, and the first one is a YA sci-fi. This is Aurora's End by Amie Kaufman and Kristoff. This is the third book in this trilogy. I recently talked about it because it just came out this month. So, you know, basically it's like we have a ragtag team of heroes who are trying to save the day, and essentially our squad has been broken up into two different groups, and we have this intergalactic battle, an ancient superweapon happening, things go horribly wrong, but we have one team who's trying to, you know, make friends, enemies, and history, and then our other team is joining forces with two of the galaxy's most hated villains, so they're essentially just trying to save the day. So I've enjoyed this series. I think it's pretty fast-paced and entertaining. There's a lot of snarky characters, which is something I enjoy. So I just am curious to see how this series ends. Then the other sci-fi book is an adult sci-fi, and this is The Second Rebel by Linden A. Lewis. This is the sequel to The First Sister, which I read, I think, last year and enjoyed. Basically, you know, it's kind of like Handmaid's Tale-esque in some ways, but Astrid's trying to bring down the sisterhood from within. She's confronting and challenging the aunts who run this religious institution, but she quickly discovers that the business of politics is far deadlier than she ever expected. Then we have Hero, who seeks to bring a dangerous ally into the rebellion. We have whispers of a digital woman fueling Hero's search, but they are not the only person looking for this link to the mysterious race of synthetics. Then there's Leto, who continues to grow into his role as a lead revolutionary and is tasked with rescuing an Aster operative from deep within an Ikari prison. With danger around every corner, Leto, his partner Ofiera, and the newly freed operative must flee in order to keep destructive secrets out of enemy hands. And then Leto's sister must carry on after her brother's disappearance and the accusation of treason by the Ikari authorities. So she's managing to keep her nose clean until an Aster revolutionary shows up with news about her brother's fate and an opportunity for her to join the fight. So I thought the first book was really exciting. It was very fast-paced. Granted, I did like some point of view sections more than others, but it was an interesting world, and I was just very excited to learn more about it. So this came out, I think, in like August or something like that. Obviously have not read it, but I'm certainly interested in seeing where the story leads next. Okay, so then I have, I think, just one graphic novel, and that's Teen Titans Raven. This is by Garcia and Gabriel Picolo. So, interestingly enough, for some reason, I thought this was like a story and didn't realize that it was a graphic novel until chatting with somebody in my comments, because the third book in this, I guess, series just recently came out, and so we're kind of talking about that. Then I, found out that this is in fact a graphic novel, and so I was like, okay, yeah, that makes me so much more interested in checking it out, because I do love Teen Titans. So basically, this is kind of like an origin story for Raven, who is someone I really enjoy, actually. So basically, we have a tragic accident that takes the life of 17-year-old Raven's foster mom and her memory. So she moves to New Orleans to recover and finish her senior year of high school. Starting over isn't easy, though. She remembers everyday stuff like how to solve math equations and make pasta, but she can't remember her favorite song or who she was before the accident. And when impossible things start happening, she begins to think it might even be better not to know who she was before. But as she grows closer to her new friends, her foster sister, Max, and Tommy, who's the guy who accepts her for who she is now, Raven has to decide if she's ready to face what's buried in the past and the darkness building inside her. So, yeah, I enjoy graphic novels and the Teen Titans, so this seems like a perfect mashup, especially because Raven is one of my favorite of the Teen Titans. So I'm very excited to check this out, and then obviously if I enjoy it, there's a couple more installments of the series that I can pick up. So then I have a bunch of romance books, because that's just what I've been in the mood for recently. The first one is I Hate You More by Lucy Gilmore. This came out, I think, earlier this month, and I just thought it sounded so fun. Also, just look at the dogs on the cover. So we have Ruby, who gave up pageant life the day she turned 18 and figured she'd never look back. But when an old friend begs her to show her beloved golden retriever at the upcoming West Coast Canine Classic, Ruby reluctantly straps on her heels and gets to work. If only she knew exactly what the adorably lazy lump of a dog was getting her into. If there's one thing our vet Spencer knows in the world, it's dogs. Human beings are an entirely different animal, especially stubborn, gorgeous women, clearly in way over their heads. As a judge for the local dog show, Spencer advises Ruby to quit while she still can, but her old fervor for winning has returned, and she's determined to show the stern, broody-eyed judge that she's more than just a pretty face. So, I'll admit the dogs are a big draw for me here, but I think what's interesting and kind of why I wanted to pick it up now is because of this dog show element, and because there's the Westminster dog show that happens on Thanksgiving, and that's coming up soon, so I feel like that's perfect to read right around that time. And I read a sample of it online and thought it sounded really entertaining. Also, the golden retriever, I think, is named Wheezy, and he's just a lazy pup, and I just love that so much. So I am very optimistic that I'll enjoy this one. The next book I have is You Had Me at Hola by Alexis Daria. So this is one that I've looked at for a while and have honestly been kind of debating on. I know a lot of friends who really enjoyed it, so I was like, okay, I'll check it out. Also, these have the most gorgeous covers, and I think the second book did just come out, so that was kind of another reason why I was like, okay, maybe I should pick up the first one finally. So basically, we have some telenovela stars, I believe. So after a messy public breakup, soap opera darling Jasmine finds her face splashed across the tabloids. When she returns to New York to star in the new bilingual romantic comedy TV show, she figures her leading lady plan should be easy enough to follow, until a casting shakeup pairs her with telenovela hunk Ashton. After he's killed off in his last telenovela, Ashton is worried his career is dead as well. Joining this new cast as a last-minute addition will give him the chance to show off his acting chops to American audiences and ping the radar of Hollywood casting agents. To make it work, he'll need to generate smoking hot on-screen chemistry with Jasmine. Easier said than done, especially when a disastrous first impression smothers the inverse of whatever sexual heat they may have had. With their careers on the line, they agree to rehearse in private, but rehearsal leads to kissing, and kissing leads to a behind-the-scenes romance worthy of a soap opera. While their on-screen performance improves, the media spotlight on Jasmine soon threatens to destroy her new image and expose Ashton's most closely guarded secrets. So that sounds really fun. I think the big draw for me here is that fact that we have telenovelas. I think that's really exciting, and I think we could have some great entertaining drama here. The next one I have is Forever Wild by K.A. Tucker. So this is a novella, and it's book like 2.5, I think, in this Simple Wild series, which I have absolutely loved. Basically, it's a enemies to lovers romance that takes place in Alaska. It's been fantastic. And I think there's another book in the series following a different character coming out in January. So this is exciting because this is actually a Christmas novella, I believe. So we have, the holiday season is upon Calla and Jonah, and with the mistletoe and gingerbread comes plenty of family drama. Jonah's bracing himself for 2 weeks with the stepfather he loathes, and while Calla is looking forward to her mother and Simon's arrival, she dreads the continued pressure to set a date for their wedding in Toronto. Add in one bullheaded neighbor's unintentional meddling and another cantankerous neighbor's on the family strife, and Christmas in Trappers Crossing will be anything but simple. So I really wanted to pick this up, obviously, before we go into Christmas, because I feel like that's going to get me in the holiday mood. So I am pretty sure I'm going to love this, so can't wait to get to it. Next, we have The Wedding Ringer by Carrie Rea. Still don't know how to pronounce it, but I talked about this in my November releases video. Basically, we have Willa, who was once a successful blogger with a good credit score, actual hobbies, and legs she shaved more than once a month. But after finding her fiancé in bed with her best friend, she now spends her days performing at children's birthday parties in a ball gown that makes her look like a walking bottle of Pepto-Bismol. She dreams of starting fresh, where no one knows who she used to be, but first she has to save enough money to make it happen. Then we have Maisie, who needs another bridesmaid for her wedding, and they encounter each other at a coffee shop. Maisie offers to pay Willa to be in her bridal party. Willa basically wants nothing to do with weddings or Maisie, but she needs that money, so essentially, Willa accepts and joins into, like, Maisie's high-energy world and into the path of hotshot Dr. Liam, and Willa and Maisie are actually forming a real friendship, and we have Liam's annoyingly irresistible smile that makes her reconsider her mantra that all men are trash, so Willa's exit strategy becomes way more complicated, and then we've got a secret from Maisie's past threatening to derail the wedding, and Willa must consider whether friendship and romance are worth sticking around for. So I read a sample of this and thought it sounded really funny, and it kind of gave me the similar vibes to The Secret Bridesmaid by Katie Birchall, which I really loved, so I feel like I'm going to enjoy this one as well. Next, I have Intercepted by Alexa Martin. So I've been kind of intrigued by Alexa Martin for a while now, and I've never actually tried a sports romance, I think. Is that true? I don't know. I think that's right. So this is, I've heard pretty good things about this in general, so we'll see. And I did read a sample and it seemed entertaining. So we have Marley, who's the perfect girlfriend. She's definitely had enough practice by dating her NFL star boyfriend for the last 10 years. But when she discovers he's been tackling other women on the sly, she vows to never date an athlete again. But there's just one problem. Gavin, the new hotshot quarterback in a fling from the past who has Marley in his sights. Gavin fights to show Marley he's nothing like her ex. Unfortunately, not everyone is ready to let her escape the past. The team's wives, who never led the welcome wagon, are not happy with Marley's return. They have only one thing on their minds, taking her down. But when the gossip makes Marley public enemy number one, she worries about more than just her reputation. It'll take a Hail Mary for Marley and Gavin's relationship to survive the season. So, yeah, I just am wanting to try more romance authors and have heard good things about the series in general, so I picked it up. Next, I have A Holly Jolly Diwali by Sonia Lally. This is also one that I want to get to probably fairly soon because it's good for the holiday season. So we have 29-year-old Nikki, who's always made practical decisions. Despite her love for music and art, she became an analyst for the stability. She's always stuck close to home in case her family needed her, and she's always dated guys that seemed good on paper rather than the ones who give her butterflies. When she's laid off, though, she realizes that being practical hasn't exactly worked out for her. So for the first time ever, she throws caution to the wind and books a last-minute flight to her friend Dia's wedding. She arrives in India just in time to celebrate Diwali, the festival of lights, where she meets London musician Samir. Maybe it's the splendor of Mumbai or the magic of the holiday season, but Nikki is immediately drawn to Sam. At the wedding, the champagne flows, and their flirtatious banter makes it clear that the attraction is mutual. When they join Dia, her husband, and their friends on a group honeymoon, their connection grows deeper. Free-spirited Sam helps Nikki get in touch with her passionate and creative side and with her Indian roots. And when she gets a new job offer back home, she must decide what she wants out of the next chapter of her life, to cling to the straight and narrow like always, or to take a leap of faith and live the kind of bold life of which the old Nikki would have never dreamed. So I've read a book by Sonia Lally before and enjoyed it, and I've heard pretty good things about this. Also, I think it's fun to try out, like, different holiday books. And I also really like that the main character is an analyst, because that's, very similar to things that I do, analyzing data. So yeah, I am very optimistic that I'll enjoy this one as well and hope to read it soon. So next we have, I think, just one horror book, and that's Our Last Echoes by Kate Ellis Marshall. So this is YA horror. This is set in the same world as Rules for Vanishing, which I read in October and absolutely adored, so I'm super excited for this one. Basically here we have Sophia's earliest memory is of drowning. She remembers the darkness of the water and the briny taste as it filled her throat, the sensation of going under. She remembers hands pulling her back to safety, but that memory is impossible because she's never been to the ocean. But then Sophia gets a mysterious call about an island named Bitter Rock and learns that she and her mother were there 15 years ago and her mother never returned. The hunt for answers lures her to Bitter Rock, but the more she uncovers, the clearer it is that her mother is just one in a chain of disappearances. People have been vanishing from Bitter Rock for decades, leaving only their ghostly echoes behind. Sophia is the only one who can break the cycle or risk becoming nothing more than another echo haunting the island. So, like I said, I loved Rules for Vanishing so much. Like, there were some fun, creepy moments, there was really interesting mystery and, like, things that tied in, and I don't know, it was just something that I found really fascinating. So I'm excited that this is like, I don't know, kind of a universe of supernatural type things. So I'm very curious to see what's going on here, and am pretty positive that I'm going to love this. Okay, so then we have some thriller books, and the first one is The Ivies by Alexa Dunn. This is YA thriller. So here we have Olivia, who always knew the Ivies were ruthless. Not Ivy League universities, the Ivies. We have 5 Charlaine Academy girls who will stop at nothing to get into the college of their dreams. Olivia should know, she's one of them. In this elite clique, ambition reigns. Busting curves, scamming club elections, and even a little sabotage are all part of the game. But when one of the Ivies is found dead hours after getting into Harvard, Olivia begins to question how far her friends are willing to go. And with a killer on the loose, will Olivia's own acceptance letter become her death sentence? So this seems just like a really fun YA thriller. I've heard pretty good things about it in general, and it's been one that I've been wanting to check out for a while. Obviously, we have some high-pressure environments here and, like, a lot of privilege, so I think that this will be really exciting. So then we have some adult thrillers. The first one is Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. So this is more of a mystery, I guess. Like I think it's actually supposed to be like more of a cozy mystery, but maybe with some romance. I don't know. I've been intrigued by it and have heard some good things from people I follow. Also, look at this. Oh, look at that little pupper. Okay, anyway. So basically this is a culinary cozy series. So we have Lila, who moves back home to recover from a horrible breakup, and her life seems to be following all the typical rom-com tropes. She's tasked with saving her Tita Rosie's failing restaurant, and she has to deal with a group of matchmaking aunties who shower her with love and judgment. But when a notoriously nasty food critic, who happens to be her ex, drops dead moments after a confrontation with Lila, her life quickly swerves from a Nora Ephron romp to an Agatha Christie case. With the cops treating her like she's the one and only suspect and the shady landlord looking to finally kick out her family and resell the storefront, Lila's left with no choice but to conduct her own investigation. Armed with a nosy auntie network, her barista best bud, and her trusted dachshund, Lila takes on this tasty, twisted case and soon finds her own neck on the chopping block. So I'm kind of hopeful that this will be similar in just like some of the vibes to Dial A for Aunties, which I really loved. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I had seen the second book in the series is maybe coming out fairly soon, so I was like, yeah, this is something I've been interested in, and it kind of fits my mood, I think. Like, a combination of rom-com stuff and some mystery stuff seems like really appealing to me right now, so I'm very hopeful that I'll enjoy this. Next, we have The Secret Next Door by Rebecca Taylor. So this just came in the November Unplugged book box. Basically, this takes place in Denver. We have Allison, who's giving her son the childhood she never had, a stable family, a loving home, and a great school in a safe neighborhood. When they move into the home of her dreams in one of the most sought-after developments, Allison works hard to fit in and impress the other mothers. We have Bonnie, who's the neighborhood matriarch. With her oldest son headed to Yale and her youngest starting kindergarten, she's now pursuing her own long-held political aspirations. But it's her middle child and their private family struggles that cast a shadow over her plans. When the open space behind some of the most expensive homes gets slated for development into a golf amusement facility, the neighborhood becomes deeply divided. The personal pressures and community conflicts ratchet with every passing day, but it's when a 13-year-old boy is found dead beside the lake that simmering tensions boil over into panic. Gossip flows, lies are exposed, and accusations are made as cracks run through the community's once solid foundations. The neighborhood's faith in exterior appearances is eclipsed by the secrets every house keeps. So I think I had read in the author letter that this is like kind of based on something similar in the author's own life, where there was actually like one of the, I think it's like a Topgolf or something, was supposed to go in near the neighborhood, and people like had a big fuss about it. So I'm kind of curious to see how this goes. Like, obviously we have some murder probably happening here, so I'm excited to check that out. Next we have The Summoning by J.P. Smith. This came in the October Unplugged book box, I believe. So every year, as the anniversary of 9/11 inches closer on the calendar, Kit scans the memorials published in the New York Times. It's a simple thing to do to look up a name and phone number, to reach out to surviving family members who might be yearning for a connection with their lost loved one, to offer assistance. After her husband went down in the North Tower, Kit scraped by as an actress, barely supporting herself and her daughter. But now Zoe's in the hospital, bills are due, and the acting work has dried up. Becoming a medium is almost too easy for someone used to pretending for a living, and desperate clients aren't hard to come by. Now, though, something has changed. The seances Kit holds in her apartment are starting to feel unsettlingly real, and the intriguing man she met at a local bar could be more complicated than he seems. As the voices of the dead grow louder in her head and the walls of her apartment close in, Kit realizes that despite her daughter's absence, she hasn't been quite as alone as she thought. So this is a psychological thriller. It sounds like it kind of leans into horror. I'm curious to see if, like, the dead are actually real and if she's, in fact, hearing spirits. So maybe supernatural thriller. Like, that would be awesome. So yeah, I mean, I think this sounds really interesting, and it looks like this author has a couple of other books. Again, if this is enjoyable, there's some more things to check out. And finally, the last book I have to talk about today is an adult thriller, and that's A Blizzard of Polar Bears by Alice Henderson. This is the sequel to A Solitude of Wolverines, which I read last year and absolutely loved. It's basically like combining thriller with wildlife biology, and so that was a very awesome combination for me. So here, this just came out also. Basically, our wildlife biologist Alex lands a job studying a threatened population of polar bears in the Canadian Arctic. Embedded with a small team of Arctic researchers, she tracks the majestic bears by air, following them over vast snowy terrain, spending days leaning precariously out of a helicopter with a tranquilizer gun until she can get down to the ice to examine them up close. But as her study progresses and she gathers data on the health of the individual bears, things start to go awry. Her helicopter pilot quits unexpectedly, equipment goes missing, and a late-night intruder breaks into her lab and steals the samples she's collected. Alex realizes that someone doesn't want her to complete her study, but she's not easily deterred. Managing to find a replacement pilot, she returns to the icy expanses of Hudson Bay. But the helicopter catches fire mid-flight, forcing the team to land on a vast sheet of white, far from civilization. Surviving on the frozen landscape is difficult enough, but as armed assailants on snowmobiles close in, Alex must rely on her skills and tenacity to survive this onslaught and carry out her mission. So, I'm super excited about this. Obviously, we have thriller elements, there's like survival elements, there's, I don't know, all sorts of intrigue going on here. I like the polar bears being involved here. So I thought Alex was a really intriguing main character, and there were definitely some mysteries brought up in the first book that I hope we get more answers to. So yeah, I'm really excited for this. Hopefully I can also get to this before the end of the year. I feel like it would be perfect to read in the winters. So those are all the books that I have to talk to you about today. I have pre-ordered some books that have not arrived. So that's like Cytonic by Brandon Sanderson. There's The Bone Shard Emperor by Andrea Stewart, and Leviathan Falls by James S. A. Corey. I think those are the three that I still have. Oh wait, no, and I also pre-ordered the print version of Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon, and that's like it's like a new special edition, basically, that has like the original story, and then I think it has like the honeymoon stuff, and like that's maybe the bonus epilogue. I don't know. Have not read that honeymoon story. I know it exists, but I've been kind of curious, and like, I don't know. I think it would be fun to, because I know the second book comes out in January, I think, and so I am hoping that they're just going to do this for the whole series, and I feel like I might just collect them all this way. But anyway, those are the books that I have pre-ordered that I currently do not have to show you, but, you know, I'll have them at some point. But yeah, I guess let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books or think you might pick them up. And for your question of the day, what books would you like to get to before the end of the year? I know that's kind of a hard question because I feel like there's so many that I want to read and not enough time. Anyway, I do have a Discord channel, and if you want to join that, the link's in the description below. I hope you're all having an excellent day and are reading something awesome. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, as that would certainly help me out. But with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up here and see you in the next one.